Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals in private practice publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of business spotlights on remarkable people, places, and things from across the country and even in your town. Joining me on this segment is Lisa Braithwaite. She's the founder of CoachLisaB.com. Lisa, welcome to the program.
Hello, nice to be here.
Great to have you. Lisa, tell us a little bit about your work and specifically the types of folks that you help.
Well, I work with entrepreneurs and business and nonprofit leaders to help them develop more engaging presentations in order to build their visibility, their credibility, and their influence.
Awesome. Now I'm going to break it down here for my audience. So kind of give us a glimpse at who should look into public speaking. Because as we know, public speaking is like one of the greatest fears, like next to death, right?
That's debatable. That I'll just say that that's a really, really old statistic and not really sure that that's true. However, it is, I wouldn't say people fear public speaking more than death, which is what you hear a lot. And actually, the majority of people I work with are not afraid of public speaking. So my clients do tend to be, as I said, business and nonprofit professionals who have a lot of experience speaking, but they're just not nailing it. You know, they're just not engaging their audiences the way they want to be. They're not getting the results from speaking that they want to get. So my work really revolves around audience engagement. A lot of my work revolves around audience engagement. And how do you get your audience to engage emotionally with your message so that they will go take action? And I do work with some people who are afraid of public speaking, but really most of the people I work with, they do it and they don't love it, or they like it and they know they could do better. And they want to grow their skills just like their other business and leadership and communication skills.
There are many professionals, as you mentioned, who have been considering speaking perhaps, but should they make it a priority? What are some of the big benefits of getting good at speaking?
I would always say yes, especially right now, because so much of the speaking that we're doing is virtual. And yes, there are some special tips and tricks to being effective virtually, but it's so easy right now to just create a video or to make a short, it could be 30 seconds, it could be a minute. In fact, I'm doing a lot of training right now around micro presentations that are under 5 minutes, because so many people I know are being asked to speak at conferences and events in less than 5 minutes. So I think for any leader who wants to get their message out there, especially if you are the face of your organization or your business, you should be speaking. People should be connecting with you on a human level. And getting in front of a camera like this is so easy to do. We don't even have to have a speaking engagement out in the world anymore. We can just get in front of a camera and share our message.
So you mentioned earlier, folks that are trying this and working on it know they need to get serious about it because their results are kind of falling short. What have you found a commonality or like a big glaring common challenge that everybody faces that's keeping them from getting the results that they want?
Probably the biggest, well, there are probably two big common challenges. One is lack of preparation. People don't spend any time preparing, and then they sort of wing it, and their ideas are all over the place, and they haven't figured out how to really narrow down their core message and what and how they want to say it. So preparation is probably the number one issue that I see. And number two, as I said, engagement. A lot of business and nonprofit leaders, especially nonprofit, and I can say this because I come out of the nonprofit sector, and I worked in the nonprofit sector for many years and founded my own nonprofit and all this. Nonprofit leaders in particular love throwing statistics at their audiences. And this is how many people we serve, and this is how long we've been serving the community. and this is how much money and blah, blah, blah. And people are not engaged or moved into action by data and statistics. They need the emotional engagement. The statistics and the data can back that up and can support that, but people don't take action unless they're engaged emotionally. So I see preparation and engagement really as the two biggest problems that most of my clients face.
So that's really interesting you bring that up, because people think that statistics is a huge thing, and that's what people want, facts and data and information.
Right.
But so that kind of sounds like a myth or a misconception. So are there any other big myths out there and misconceptions that people think they need to do when they're speaking?
I'll tell you a really big one, and there are a lot of people who disagree with me about this, but a lot of my clients, a lot of people come to me obsessed with cutting ums and uhs out of their presentation. And it's ums and uhs are a natural part of speech. They're part of speech in literally every language in the world. And we call them fillers. So ums, uhs, and other kinds of things like that. And people get so obsessed with worrying about the ums and the uhs that they don't think about all these other issues. Are you serving your audience? Are you giving them something that's relevant and practical and useful? And so, and this Toastmasters thing, it was invented, basically, the issue about ums and uhs was invented by Toastmasters. And I'm not going to say that there aren't people who use fillers to an egregious degree, if it becomes really egregious and there's sort of an ongoing pattern. But people just obsess too much about these minor things that actually are not at the core of getting your message across.
To your point, I've heard people criticize speakers about ums and ahs and, oh, I can't believe that, or I don't like her shoes. And what I've found is these are the folks that actually weren't interested in the topic, or they were like not the audience for that speaker. Because I can tell you, some really high level speakers that I know, some of my own mentors, do a lot of ums and ahs, and they're not the most eloquent speakers, but they've got the content, and that's what gets people engaged.
Content and that human connection, that real, you know, and here I am saying right now, but it's that human connection. And I'm a speaking coach, and I don't sit in audiences counting ums. I just don't. I really look for how is this person relating to me? Do they understand me? Do they know what I need, want, and care about? That's what I'm looking for. So a person who sits in the audience and counts ums, I've literally had this happen before, where somebody came up to me after a presentation and said, "Do you know that you said 7 times?" Wow. 7 times in an hour, not too terrible, first of all. And second of all, you clearly weren't interested in the message. So you found something else to do.
You have relaxed a lot of people that are apprehensive about speaking, because now
I
you know
hope
that
so.
you could be yourself and be okay with your ums and ahs. So Lisa, can you give us like a 10,000-foot view of like, how should somebody prepare, like the structure of their presentation? Are there some big building blocks that people should use when whether they're making a 5-minute presentation, as you mentioned, or a 90-minute speech?
I think a really easy structure for people to remember would be an opening, a closing, and 3 main points. That's kind of the, you know, the most common structure of a presentation. But what people don't think about is those 3 main points, the body of the presentation. You need to create a structure that takes your audience on a journey. So your structure could be something like, here's the big picture. Here's what's happening in our country. Here's what's happening in our state. Here's what's happening in our city, right? So global to local, or big to small. Here's the big picture, you know, narrowing it down. Or it could be, here are 3 important things to know, 3 ways to do X, Y, Z. Or it could be past, present, and future. Here's how we did things in the past. Here's how we do them now. Here's our vision for the future. So those 3 main points in the middle should lead your audience on a journey in some way, and that will help your audience navigate your message. It'll just naturally give them a path to follow. And then the other thing I want to say about openings and closings, a lot of people have trouble closing a presentation, and I like to liken this to leaving a party. and you decide it's time to leave the party, but 30 minutes later you're still there because you've been saying goodbye to everybody in the room and you haven't left. This is what a lot of closings are like. So I really want to encourage people, tighten up your closing, come back around with a call to action or some big, a great ending to the story, or a great wrap up, wrap a bow around your presentation, and then be done and say thank you, and you're done. And don't keep trying to find 10 different ways to repeat what you already said.
I love that. That's a great analogy of, are you going to say goodbye to each and every person at the party before you leave the stage?
And we all do it. We all know that feeling of, I meant to leave this party 20 minutes ago and I'm still here. That's how it feels when you're in the audience and a person can't get around to wrapping up their presentation.
Lisa, we also probably have all had this experience. Hearing a presenter or a speaker that just bores you to tears with their, here's my story and here's about me. Because I've heard an expression that people don't care about you until they know how much you care, something like that. Where is the right place to insert like your story and why and how to connect it to the relevance of your talk?
That is a fabulous question. Thank you for asking that, because a lot of people have a good story that is relevant to the audience. They're using their story to teach some lessons or to use as an analogy for some of their concepts and some of their points. And so your story, if your story is relevant, then it should be in your presentation. A lot of people don't know what parts of the story are relevant. I work with a lot of people who want to tell like their whole entire life story, and it takes up way too much of the presentation. So I generally ask, especially if you're talking about just things like your credentials and what you've been doing for the past 20 years, leave all that out. That's not relevant. And especially don't put it into your first 2 minutes of your talk. You want to jump in with something that's going to get your audience interested and excited right away. So you could start with your story, but here's a tip to using stories, is that the best place to start a story is in the middle. So if you're going to share your story, if your story is part of the presentation and illustrates your points and your concepts, start your story in the middle. Because starting the story at the beginning is never actually that interesting. When we come into a movie, the main character, generally something is already happening, right? Something's happening in their life that we see. And then maybe they'll come back around. Oh, I just saw an amazing movie the other day that did this so well. It was called Rudderless. Just a shout out to this movie Rudderless, about a family who loses their son in a school shooting. And 3/4 of the way through the movie, something new, a new piece of information comes into the movie and just blows it wide open. It's just so amazing. So if you're going to use a story, number one, it has to be relevant, practical, and useful to your audience. It has to illustrate your points and your lessons and your concepts. And it doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't have to be, here's the beginning of the story, here's the middle, here's the end. You could even start your story with the end and come back around and tell how you got to that place.
Sage advice. Now, Lisa, I'm going to segue into this. I want to hear your story and how you became Coach Lisa B and got into speaking. You mentioned you were in the nonprofit space. Tell us how you got started and what inspired you.
That actually was how I got started. I was a theater major, so I always liked performing, and I actually was on the speech team in high school. So it wasn't completely foreign to me to be doing public speaking, but I actually did start speaking through my nonprofit work. And really, the official story is that I started a job at a domestic violence shelter as the children's program coordinator. So I was going to be working with the children in the shelter. And after I took the job, I was handed this 1-page outline of a presentation and said, by the way, you're going to go into high schools and you're going to talk to high school students about domestic violence. And I was like, what? Because at the time, I really thought high school students would be the absolute worst audience to speak to. And I didn't really have a lot of experience at that point creating presentations. It had been years since I was on the speech team in high school. So I took this one pager and started going into high schools. And I very quickly learned that the best audience to learn public speaking in front of is high school students. I learned right away, you have to gain their trust. You have to engage them. You have to show them respect. You have to listen to their experience and knowledge. And high school students, teenagers, turned out to be the best possible audience to learn how to do this. And I started crafting, and I started really figuring out what I needed to do to bring this topic home to them, and to not walk into a room and have everybody just cross their arms. We don't want to know about domestic violence. And why would we want to know about that? Oh, you're just here to bash men. So all of these things really helped me hone my skills. And then that's what I did for years in the nonprofit jobs that I worked in, including the organization that I founded. I went out and I did a ton of community outreach. And so I kind of learned on the job at that point. And then after getting laid off 3 times in 4 years by nonprofits, because nonprofits are kind of notorious for funding a program, but not sustaining a program, I got laid off 3 times in 4 years. And after that, I decided, you know what? I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm not going to get a job in a nonprofit anymore. I'm not going to get any more jobs. I'm going to start my own thing. And it just so happened that I was in an entrepreneurship program in Santa Barbara, and somebody in the room saw me speak about my nonprofit that I still had at the time. And she wanted to know how she could get on a stage and be comfortable in her own skin and engage with the audience and do all the things that I was doing. And I went, oh, light bulb moment. I could teach people how to do this because I've been doing it and learning about it I also have a master's degree in education. So that was another piece of the puzzle that all came together. And that is what it prompted me to start a speaking coaching business.
Fantastic. And congratulations on your success thus far. That's
Thank
a
you.
terrific story. Lisa,
That was 15 years ago now.
wow. For my audience listening right now, connecting with you, do you have an invitation for them, or how do they learn more, connect with you, and perhaps work with you?
A couple of things. Right now, I have a micro presentations training coming up that's free. And it's to help people figure out how to take all of this knowledge and all of these ideas that they have that maybe they're used to presenting in an hour or longer, and take those ideas and craft them into what I call a fun size presentation, because that's what people are asking for right now. I had a client who was one speaker of 10 in an hour, and this is a thing now. People are asking, because of virtual, come and speak for 2 minutes on your topic. So the micro presentations workshop is on March 18th, and it's free. And my website is coachlisab.com, and that's right up at the top of the homepage. So people will see that. It is on the 18th. That's very close to when this interview is coming out. But people can go to my website and grab a number of free and low priced products. I have an option for a presentation scorecard where you can review your own presentation, your own video, and score yourself and see how you're doing. So I have a lot of free and low priced options. And then of course, people can also come to me for one-to-one coaching, as well as corporate training. I also go out and I say go out. I don't go anywhere. I sit here in my chair and do corporate training on video these days.
Terrific. Lisa, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed speaking with you today. I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients. That was Lisa Braithwaite. She is Coach Lisa B, and this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where business owners, professionals, and entrepreneurs publish to grow their businesses and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for tuning in.